Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessie. If you are new here, I do all kinds of videos about lifestyle. I do a lot of vlogs. I talk about living with chronic illness, working for myself, and then I just kind of put in videos here and there about things that I'm interested in. So if you're interested in that type of channel, make sure that you subscribe down below and hit the like button if you like this video. So today I'm going to talk about the books that I've already read here in January. Now I will say it's January 25th, 26th as I'm filming this to go up on January 29th. So there's a very good chance that I'll read a couple more books before the end of the month. But if you guys like this type of video, I'll include those in February's books that I've read. Sorry, I switched my tripod around there for a second. I did a book review kind of a couple of months ago about some of my favorite books that I've been like obsessed with lately. So I'll make sure to link that one down below and I'll link it in the cards as well. But I'm just gonna tell you the books that I read here in January. Now, I wanna preface this with saying, I am kind of a speed reader. I've always been able to read really quickly. My best friend actually reads even quicker than me, which is crazy. Ben always thinks that I'm crazy. He specifically thinks that I don't actually read, which is untrue. I just am one of those people when I'm reading like a fiction book, I get so tied up in it that I like can't stop. So I have already read 11 books this January. My goal for the year was 50, so I'm well ahead of schedule. I might actually even change that at some point, but so I do read quite a bit of books. Let's talk about the type of books that I like. So I'm definitely more of like a fantasy fiction, a little bit of romance mixed in. Some people like to call it smut. Those are the type of books that I'm usually pulled toward. I also like mysteries. I just like fiction books, but I don't like the like frilly romancy books. Like I want there to be some action. I want a strong female lead. I'm not a big damsel in distress type of girl. So those are the types of books that I usually read. And then I do read some nonfiction. I just don't go through it as quickly because I feel like it's just like harder to get through. And honestly, I was like a big self-help book girl for a really long time. And then I just like burned myself out on it. And I've really struggled kind of getting back into that kind of stuff. So I have really enjoyed reading fiction books and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I know a lot of people say that you should read nonfiction books to learn stuff, but I read for enjoyment, I read for relaxation, I read for self-care. I don't need to necessarily be reading a bunch of books that like tell me what I should be doing better with my life. So I'll tell you about a couple of the nonfiction books that I did read. I think I only read, I'm looking at my Goodreads account here, which by the way, I will have linked in the description if you wanna follow me there. Yeah, I have only read 2 nonfiction books. I'm in the middle of another one, but it's for therapy, so I'm really only reading it kind of on and off. So the 2 nonfiction books that I read this month were Stay Hungry by Sebastian Maniscalco, which if you watched one of my most recent vlogs, I went on like a rant about why I love this book so much, so I won't go too far into it. But then I also read The Body Keeps the Score. The Body Keeps the Score is a very interesting book. I listened to it on Audible. I've also noticed with nonfiction books that listening to them sometimes is a little bit more helpful for me. So I listened to that book. To be honest, I didn't read it all in January. I've been listening to this book on and off for a couple of months. I just finally finished it in January. I usually listen to audiobooks when I'm like getting ready in the morning or cooking or meal prepping, that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed this book as someone who is doing nervous system work, who's working with a therapist, working through little t, big T traumas that I've been through. This book was really interesting to just hear about how your body keeps the score and a lot of those traumas just get like stuck in your body and those emotions get stuck in there and there's like nothing you can do about it. Well, that's not true. There is stuff you can do about it, but it feels like there's nothing you can do about it. So if you're interested in like nervous system work, PTSD, trauma in your body, those types of things, I think that that is a really good book to read. I know a lot of people in the holistic health community have read it and I enjoyed it. It's definitely more of a science-y book. So that's like a way that I describe some nonfiction books is like science-y. I'm not great at science. It's just like not my vibe. I'm not great at like medical terms, all that kind of stuff. It just jumbles in my brain and I can't get it. But so it's a little bit sciencey, but I did really enjoy the book. Sebastian Maniscalco's book, Stay Hungry, loved it. Again, highly recommend listening to it on Audible because Sebastian reads it himself, and he is a comedian. He's hilarious. He's my favorite comedian, and it just makes the book like 10 times better because he's reading it. I actually read Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, or listened to on our way to and from Wisconsin when we went home this last year, and again, Matthew McConaughey read the book and it was great. So I highly recommend when you're reading a book like that, if you can read it by the author, if they're like an actor or a comedian that you enjoy, it just makes it 10 times better. I loved that book. I got through that book so quickly. I like looked forward to having time to like put my headphones in and read it. So highly recommend that book. So now we'll get into some of the fiction books that I read. So a lot of the fiction books that I've read are like at least a trilogy or something like that. I have a new Kindle that I got for Christmas. Thank you to my sister. So I have been reading a lot of books on Kindle Unlimited because I get like 3 months of Kindle Unlimited free, and you basically get to like borrow books, almost like a library. That has been really nice for me. However, they don't have like a ton of books that I want to read. They've only had some. So I kind of blew through all of the mostly free Kindle Unlimited. I think some of these books I paid for, but not all of them. So I'll start with A Court of Honey and Ash. It was actually a book that was a recommendation via Kindle based on some of the other books that I read. So I swiped that one up. I really enjoyed that one. The second book with that one was A Thorn of Feathers and Bone. And then I believe the third one comes out in a couple of weeks. So I actually gave A Court of Honey and Ash a 3 rating. It wasn't my favorite. I didn't love the way that the book was written initially, and I didn't really love just like the storyline. I felt like there was a lot of like random stuff that didn't really make sense, but I loved the second book enough that I'm going to read the third book. I just think that it's a really good quick read if you're into that kind of stuff. Again, on here it says fantasy, fae, romance, new adult. So a lot of the books I read have like some sort of fae, fairy, fantasy type of stuff in it, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good book. I definitely preferred the second book to the first book, but if you're looking for something and you have Kindle Unlimited or you can get it for free, I think that they're a pretty good book, but I also think that there are better books. Next up, I read the first 2 books of the Demon Queen Trials books. Again, these ones fantasy, romance, paranormal, new adult, all that kind of stuff. The first book is called City of Thorns. I gave this book a 5. I loved this book. So there's like a Lord of Chaos, and then there's like this girl. It kind of deals with like demons, and I don't think demons are like what we think of demons as. This girl is trying to figure out what happened to her mother. She gets kind of pulled into this thing with the Lord of Chaos, and she's like required to do it because she looks like somebody else. Then of course ends up like falling for him. And then in the second book, which is Lord of Embers, it goes into the story even more. And like, I will say the second book, I was a little bit irritated at the end because it definitely didn't end the way that I wanted it to. I think the third book comes out in a couple of months, so I'll definitely be reading that one. But all of these books, like, they make you want to read the next one, even if it's not like the best book in the world. But I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a good quick read. Again, if you're into like the fantasy type of space, I think that it's really interesting. It's also interesting that it's like demons and there's like a demon world and it's this whole thing. So I hope that you enjoy. I don't know if I'm great at explaining these things, but I'm trying to let you guys know what I read. The next book that I read is called Promises and Pomegranates. So it was another like free book that I found. I think it was free at least. And it says romance, fantasy, dark retellings. So basically, this is a Hades Persephone type of rendition. There's a lot of Hades Persephone renditions, and this one is definitely like it takes just bits and pieces from Hades Persephone. It's nothing like the story, but there is, like it says, Dr. Death, Hades incarnate. Incarnate, is that how you say that? Anyway, I really like this book. I gave it a 4. I didn't think it was like the best book I've ever read. Like A Court of Thorns and Roses is like, well, actually the second book, A Court of something else, is the best book I've ever read. I really enjoyed this. Again, girl meets guy. Guy isn't what she thinks he's gonna be, but then she ends up falling for him, and it's like this whole thing, and I love those types of books. I like it when the female is a strong character, but then at the same time she like wants to be in love, you know, that kind of thing. And I think I really like the like fantasy strong like male character as well. So these types of books, totally up my alley. Hopefully they're up yours. I like them. So a book I actually read last year was A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. Absolutely loved the book. It is another Hades Persephone rendition, except it is actually a closer retelling of Hades Persephone with just like a lot more interesting parts kind of pushed into it. So I read book 2 and book 3. So I read A Touch of Ruin and A Touch of Malice, which are book 2 and 3. A Touch of Chaos is the next one that comes out not until 2023, which sucks for me. I love these books. I really, really like the relationship of Persephone and Hades in this book. I really like the way that Scarlett St. Clair writes her characters. I think that the Persephone character is like a very, very strong female lead, which I really enjoy. I will say the third book, A Touch of Malice, there was a lot more like sex scenes in it than I needed. I was kind of like over it at that point. I was like, okay, let's like move on to the actual story. So that wasn't like my favorite thing, but otherwise I really enjoyed those books, and I'll definitely be reading the fourth one when it comes out in 2023, which means I'll have to reread all of these ones because I'm not going to remember what it's about. That's the one thing with reading so many different like fantasy books, is that there's like too many of them and they're getting mixed up in my head. So the two most recent books that I read, again, are a series. There's a third book coming out soon. It's called A Ruin of Roses and A Thorn of Ruin, and they are by K.F. Breene, I believe. I really liked these books. I think I liked book 2 better. This almost always happens to me. I feel like the first book, a lot of times they're like trying to set up the scenes of what'll actually be happening later on, and it's just like not always my favorite. I will say I did like this book pretty quickly. These two characters, this one girl is basically living in like this poor neighborhood. They're not allowed to leave their villages, and she's trying to like help her father and help the people of the village. And in order to do so, she has to like go into the woods in order to like get some stuff to make some stuff. Does that make sense? So I will say, if you've read A Court of Thorns and Roses, the beginning is almost identical to the beginning of A Court of Thorns and Roses. There's a beast involved, there's woods involved. She has to go there in order to save her family. She gets caught by the beast, the whole thing. So the beginning is very similar to A Court of Thorns and Roses. I remember saying to Ben, like, this is weird. It's a little bit too close for comfort for me, but it was still really good. I really enjoyed it. So I really like those books. I'm looking forward to the third. I really like the characters. This book, the guy sometimes is a little bit annoying because he has like multiple personalities, it seems like, and the female lead is like a strong female lead. She like does not take any shit at all, and going into the third book, she's kind of the one that needs to save the day. So I really enjoy that kind of thing. There's still romance. There's still some like sex scenes in that, if that's like not your vibe. If that's not your vibe, none of these books will be your vibe, because pretty much all of them have some sort of like sexual encounter in them. Some of them are worse than others. I really enjoyed this book. I really liked the plot of this book. I thought that it was a very quick read. I really enjoyed it. I liked how the storyline went, and I'm really interested to see what happens in the third story, and I'm really hoping that it ends in a happy way, you know, but that's what like everybody wants in these books, right, is like for it to end in a happy way. So those are the 11 books that I've read in 2022 so far. I have quite a few books on my what I want to read. Yeah, I have 44 books in my to read spot, and I'm currently reading, just so you guys know, I have 2 books, Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, which is more of a nonfiction book, and then I'm reading Polyvagal Exercises for Safety and Connection with my therapist. So those are kind of a little bit more slower reads. And then I just bought like a bunch of books yesterday. Well, I bought like 2 books, 3 books because I'm in a book club, so I have a book to read for that by Monday, and then I have a couple more books in this like fantasy realm that I really like. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm not like great at explaining books, so what I think I might do in the future is like right after I read the book, write like a little synopsis of what I liked and what I didn't about it, because what I'm noticing as I did this video is that I didn't fully remember the stories from the books that I read in the beginning of the month versus now, just because I've read so many stories, so in my mind they're kind of jumbling together. But if you guys enjoyed this type of video, let me know down below so that I can keep filming these. I think that I'll probably do this like once a month and just tell you guys what I read for the month and what I'm looking to read in the next month. So if you enjoyed these types of videos, let me know down below. Otherwise, I will see you in Tuesday's video with another vlog, because this weekend is actually, well, you're seeing this Saturday. Sunday is my 34th birthday. So I'm going to be filming like my little weekend vlog of what I get up to for my birthday. Although it's supposed to snow again, and Raleigh just like shuts down when it snows. So, but I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you on Tuesday.